Hey everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and today I want to talk about silver and how not to get blown out when you're purchasing silver. So there's 8 common mistakes that people make or can make, and it's important to kind of understand what they are and then implement strategies so that you don't fall victim to these mistakes. There's been a lot of buzz around silver recently, so I think this is a topic people are thinking about, but this video will also be evergreen and that the tips always apply. And with that being said, let's get into the video. So before we start the video, I do want to say this is for entertainment purposes only. This is not investment advice. I don't want to be held liable for this. But the first thing that I would say, which is a major mistake that'll tie into the rest of the video, is I personally would buy physical silver. So that's important because the silver and the attractiveness of silver is often found in having it physically with you. You can purchase ETFs of silver where they will trade the silver online. Somebody else owns it and holds it, and you're entitled to your share of silver. But there is some risk with that. The first thing that I want to say is a lot of people hold silver in case of a big downturn or a prepping scenario or just a time where there's economic instability or uncertainty. You want to be holding silver. You want to have it with you as opposed to having the counterparty risk where somebody else owns the silver and has to make good on their promise. If things get bad enough, you're probably going to be left in the dust without that silver. So that's one reason to own the silver physically. The other thing is you kind of miss out on actually seeing the silver and having it with you. I think there's just a cool feeling about being in possession of some of the element. Now, it is a tie-in with the first one, owning physical silver, but when you do own physical silver, you need to make sure that you're buying it in the right denomination, and there's a lot of pitfalls that people should try to avoid. One thing for most people, it's different if you have tons and tons of money, but I think most people don't want to be buying huge bars. If you just have 1 bar of silver as opposed to say 100 ounces in 1 ounce coins, there's probably not going to be too much of a difference when you're purchasing the silver if it's junk silver, but there is a difference when you go to sell. It's a lot harder to sell the 100 ounce, and often you'll actually get less money for it. So that's kind of an unfortunate part about that. This also applies to silver that is really low denomination. One problem that some people do, they try to buy a lot of fractional silver, so like 1/2 ounce minted silver coins. Those are going to be too expensive. The premiums are a little bit too high. We'll get into that later, but that's another example of a bad denomination. Good denomination, normally 1 ounce will be 1 ounce, pretty consistent, and then junk silver or constitutional silver, so US 90% silver, that can also be bought at very close to spot, and you have a lot of different arrangements where you can only expend a little bit of it as opposed to having just huge things that you can't get rid of. And if it ever did come to a situation where you need to trade some of that silver, you'd also want to have it in small amounts so that you can get very exact. I think the next thing that I personally would say is important is that you want to be buying reputable silver. So it's important that there's a lot of people who can recognize that the silver that you have is real, and that's something like, again, 90% constitutional silver, American Eagle coins, Canadian maple leafs. There might be slightly higher premiums when you go to sell, though. Those premiums should hold pretty strong. Just buying reputable silver is better than having a lot of stuff where it's just questionable. I probably trust a little bit less in something that's like a third-party bullion company than most people do. I think a lot of people trust just generic silver rounds, but I think that there is something to be said for having silver that everybody knows is silver, and it's backed up with a lot of confidence and trust in the minting company. And then the next thing, that brings me to point number 4. Another mistake is buying fake silver. Obviously, that's a pretty big mistake and maybe not a great point, but it's just really important that when you buy silver coins that you do it, not only that the actual form is reputable, that's like an Engelhard bar or the Silver Eagle or the junk silver, but also that it's real. So you want to be doing your buying through a source like a trusted and established coin shop, or the mint, for example, though I generally don't recommend the mint because often it's a little bit overpriced, but maybe something like Kitco or APMEX, but something that's trading a lot of silver and it's going to have a good guarantee. If you buy on eBay, for example, often it's good if there's some trusted sellers on eBay, but there are a lot of reports of people getting scammed buying fake silver. I know a lot of people, I work in a coin shop, some people come in, they bought stuff off of eBay and it's literally fake. They didn't really know the difference, and they're sometimes, they can't get any money back if certain things have happened. Oftentimes they can, but you do want to be buying from a reputable source. Number 5, and I hinted to this earlier, but is overpaying for premiums. There's a lot of ways that you can buy silver where you're going to pay more than you should. When you're investing in silver, that should be totally separate from a numismatic item, which is where the coin is valuable because of the silver that's inside of the coin. When you invest in silver, you want to be just buying reputable, solid silver. So the thing is, if you're going to be trying to buy high-end Morgan silver dollars, for example, or even just general Morgan dollars, there's less silver than the value is, so you're going to be paying too much. It's in a totally different category, but I can extend this like US Mint commemorative 1 ounce coins. They're often going to be priced way more than 1 ounce of silver is worth. I'm trying to think of other ones. I think a lot of foreign coins, often you'll be paying more with the silver. If they're not as well known, the silver is just not making up most of the value. There's numismatic value. Again, you just want to make sure that what you're buying when it's for silver purposes is a specific silver, bullion, or junk silver dedicated item. Number 6 is some really common advice, and I think it should make sense, but it's a mistake to buy all of your silver at once. There's something called dollar cost averaging. Obviously, people might have anecdotal experience where it worked out really well for them and they bought all at once and it did really well, but I think the trend is that if you generally gradually get into silver, that it'll be a better investment as opposed to just doing it all at once. The thing is, if it's all at once, it's very easy for your profits and your money to just erode and basically you lose your money, whereas if you're dollar cost averaging, you may not be able to get as much profit out of it necessarily, but you will significantly reduce your risk of buying at a point in the market when it's really high right before a crash. And generally, if you look in the historical trends, over time the silver will go up. If it's not 5 or 10 years, it's going to be 20 years. But that's just something important to consider. Yes, you might miss a $1 or $2 spike, but you're also probably going to still have made a profit over time. And again, reducing your loss is important as well. And it'll let you build a steady portfolio of silver over time that can accumulate to quite a lot. Number 7 might not be a mistake that you want to hear or admit that you're making, but that's buying too much silver. Or having silver be too much of your portfolio or precious metals on the whole. There's some people who really will just want to invest only in silver. There are some downsides to having your portfolio in silver. Often, it's not going to pay something like dividends. The silver will not be like a stock would in that it's indexable. It's just silver. If you look over time, silver often does not grow quite as fast as stocks in terms of the percentage in the long run. So that's also something to think is important, but it is a great hedge against things like inflation, against maybe a bad downturn where silver ends up doing pretty well. So it just doesn't make sense for somebody to have 50 or 80% of their net worth tied up in precious metals. You want to diversify your portfolio, whether that's real estate, stocks, I don't even know what. There's plenty of stuff that it could be, but it shouldn't be all silver. It's very uncommon to have 50+%. I would assume like even 20-25% would be a pretty high amount. Everybody gets to do it their own way though. There's probably some people that have worked out really well by buying just silver, but I just think that sometimes in the community there's a notion to say, yeah, silver's going to go up, silver's going to go up. And I think it will, but I don't know. I don't think that you can say with confidence that's going to be like $500 next year. You should pour all of your money into it. You just need to use temperance and caution and understanding when investing in it. And then 8 is ignoring the market and what drives it. So this is something that I'm looking to do, and it's really difficult to understand, but you really should be trying to think about why silver is priced the way it is, or how mining stocks are priced. You want to understand the factors, whether that's interest rates, just like you wouldn't want to make investments in a stock that you had no idea and hadn't done any research on. Just because other people are saying it's a good buy or a bad buy doesn't mean that you should just pour your money into it. You should do your research, try to see historically what has led to good silver price gains and what hasn't, and just kind of understand that. That's something I'm doing better. Again, if you could do it perfectly, then you'd be pretty good at trading silver. Probably would be a lot wealthier than any viewer or me on this channel. But with that being said, those are 8 mistakes that people make when they're purchasing silver and getting into silver. A lot of this is more starting advice, but I think it's really important, again, for a lot of people interested now that there's been a pretty noticeable uptick in silver. It's just good to get some base understanding before you make a move. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe to help me out with my channel. And if you want to connect more, I do so on my Facebook, TreasureTown, my website, treasuretownYT.com, or my Instagram, TreasureTownYT. Have a great day, and I hope to see you on some of my other videos.